Imagine, just for a moment, that everything you desire already belongs to you, not as some distant hope or future possibility, but as a present fact, a completed reality in your consciousness. What if I told you that this simple shift, this divine assumption, is the only true secret to manifestation that has ever existed? My dear friends, I've spent years studying the works and lectures of the great mystic Neville Goddard, not as a casual reader, but as a devoted student determined to unlock the truth behind his revolutionary teachings. And what I discovered shook the very foundation of everything I thought I knew about the art of manifestation. For 7 full days, I committed to living entirely by Neville's most powerful technique, what he called living in the end, and the results were nothing short of miraculous. But before I reveal what happened, I must first help you understand what most so-called manifestation experts have tragically misunderstood about Neville's actual teachings. While countless influencers and spiritual teachers claim to teach Neville's methods, they've watered down his profound wisdom into simplified techniques that miss the essential truth of his message. They've turned the sacred into the superficial, the mystical into the mechanical. You see, Neville Goddard wasn't merely teaching manifestation techniques. He was revealing the very nature of reality itself. He wasn't offering tricks to get things. He was unveiling the divine relationship between consciousness and the world you experience. The world, Neville declared, is your consciousness objectified. Let that sink in. Not a portion of your world. All of it, every person, circumstance and condition you encounter, is but the outer picturing of states you have occupied in consciousness. 3 profound misconceptions have kept you from experiencing the true power of Neville's teachings. 3 fundamental misunderstandings that have prevented you from claiming your divine inheritance as a creator. The first shocking truth about manifestation is that nothing exists outside of your consciousness. Nothing. The very notion that you must attract something from an external world is the primary illusion that keeps you locked in a state of wanting rather than having. When most teach manifestation, they position you as a magnetic force, trying to pull distant objects toward you through the proper application of thought, emotion, and energy. But Neville's revolutionary insight turns this model completely upside down. He didn't teach attraction. He taught assumption. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, he would say, not because this feeling would somehow magnetize your desire toward you, but because the feeling itself is the evidence that what you seek already exists within the only place anything can ever exist, your consciousness. Do you see the radical difference? You're not trying to get something, you're awakening to the fact that you already possess everything. The outer world is merely catching up to what is already true within you. I remember the exact moment this truth first pierced through my intellectual understanding and became a living reality. I was standing before my bathroom mirror, reciting affirmations as I had done countless times before, when suddenly I realized the futility of my approach. I wasn't changing my state of consciousness. I was merely painting new words over old beliefs. That's when I decided to put Neville's teachings to the ultimate test. For 1 week, I would abandon all conventional manifestation techniques. No vision boards, no endless affirmations, no forced visualization, and instead, I would simply assume the feeling of already being the person who has what I desire. But before I reveal what happened, let me ask you, how would you feel if your greatest desire were already fulfilled? Not how you imagine you might feel, but the actual, natural feeling of living in that completed state. This is where most spiritual teachers lead you astray. They encourage elaborate visualization practices where you strain to see detailed pictures in your mind's eye. They promote endless repetition of affirmations until your voice grows hoarse. They suggest complex rituals designed to raise your vibration. Yet, Neville taught something far simpler and infinitely more powerful. He taught that feeling is the secret. Not emotional excitement, but the natural feeling of already being who you wish to be. If you will assume your desire and live there as though it were true, Neville taught, no power on earth can stop it from becoming a fact. This isn't magical thinking, it's the practical application of spiritual law. Consider this. Right now, without any effort whatsoever, you know what it feels like to be in your current home. You don't need to visualize it or affirm it. You simply know it as fact. That knowing, that assumption of reality, is precisely what Neville was pointing to. The question isn't how to manifest your desires, it's how to transfer your sense of reality from your current state to your desired state. And that transfer happens not through repetitive techniques, but through a singular shift in assumption. As the great William Blake, whom Neville often quoted, wrote, "What seems to be is to those to whom it seems to be. Your assumptions, held with conviction, become your reality, not eventually but immediately in consciousness, from which all things flow." This is what I discovered during my 7-day experiment of truly living in the end. I abandoned the struggle of trying to make things happen, and instead rested in the assumption that what I desired was already mine. The results were nothing short of transformative, and in the next part of this series, I'll reveal exactly what happened when I fully embodied Neville's teaching that an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. But first, let me address the most common objection I hear. If it were that simple, wouldn't everyone be manifesting their desires? The answer lies in understanding the difference between intellectual comprehension and spiritual conviction. Many understand Neville's words, but few truly embody his teaching. As we continue this journey together, I promise to share not just the theory, but the practical application of living in the end, the exact process I followed during my 7-day experiment that produced results I had been struggling to manifest for years using conventional methods. The truth is, you've been manifesting perfectly all along, manifesting exactly what you've been assuming to be true. The question is, are you ready to consciously choose a new assumption and inhabit it as naturally as you inhabit your current reality? Now, my dear friends, let us delve deeper into the profound misconceptions that have kept you separated from your divine inheritance. The greatest tragedy in modern manifestation teachings is not what they include, but what they have omitted from Neville Goddard's revolutionary wisdom. The first misconception, that manifestation involves attracting things from outside yourself, we have already begun to dismantle. Remember always, the world is yourself pushed out. These 5 words contain more truth than countless manifestation books combined. Nothing exists outside of your consciousness. The person you see across the street, the circumstances that appear to happen to you, the very room in which you now sit, all are projections of states you have occupied in consciousness. Neville wrote, "Man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are causes other than his own state of consciousness." Consider how radical this statement truly is. It means that nothing, absolutely nothing, can enter your world except that which corresponds to your assumptions about yourself and others. During my 7-day experiment, I observed this principle with awe-inspiring clarity. On the 2nd day, a colleague who had been consistently difficult suddenly changed their behavior toward me. I had not spoken to them about my concerns, nor had I taken any external action to improve our relationship. The only thing that changed was my assumption about them. The night before, I had fallen asleep, embodying the feeling that this person deeply respected and appreciated me. I didn't try to visualize specific changes in their behavior. I simply knew, with unshakable conviction, that our relationship was harmonious. The next morning they approached me with a warmth that had never been present before. Was this coincidence? Perhaps, if viewed through conventional understanding. But as Neville taught, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. What appeared as a spontaneous change in another was simply the outer world reflecting my changed assumption. Let us now address the second profound misconception. You need to keep affirming and visualizing repeatedly to manifest. This misunderstanding has caused more frustration and disillusionment than perhaps any other. How many of you have dutifully repeated affirmations morning and night, visualized until your mind grew weary, only to find your external reality stubbornly unchanged? Neville's teaching stands in stark contrast to this approach. He did not advocate for constant repetition, but for what he called the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This feeling is not an emotional intensity that must be maintained through effort. Rather, it is the natural, effortless knowing that accompanies any established fact in your life. Consider, do you need to affirm repeatedly that you are currently reading these words? Do you need to visualize intensely that you are where you are? Of course not. You simply know these things to be true. This same quality of knowing, this same naturalness of assumption, is what Neville pointed to as the creative power. In his lecture, The Law and the Promise, Neville stated, "An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact." Notice carefully his choice of words, persisted in, not repeatedly affirmed. The persistence is not in the technique, but in maintaining the assumption regardless of contrary evidence. During my experiment's 3rd day, I faced what appeared to be direct contradiction to my assumption. I had been living in the assumption of financial abundance, feeling the naturalness of having more than enough. That very day, I received an unexpected bill that, by all logical assessments, should have triggered anxiety and lack consciousness. But here is where Neville's teaching transcends conventional manifestation practice. Instead of frantically returning to affirmations or visualizations to combat this contradictory evidence, I simply maintained my assumption. I acknowledged the bill as part of the bridge of incidents that must occur between my assumption and its full manifestation. Neville wrote, "The first step in changing the future is desire, that is, define your objective. Second, construct an event which you believe you would encounter following the fulfillment of your desire, an event which implies fulfillment of your desire, something which will have the action of self predominant. This event, this simple, singular moment that implies your desire is fulfilled, is far more powerful than hours of visualization." For me, the event was simply checking my bank account and feeling the naturalness of seeing abundant funds. I didn't need to repeat this visualization constantly. I needed only to capture the feeling once and then live from that state. By the fourth day, without any logical explanation, a payment I had completely forgotten about was deposited into my account, an amount that exceeded the unexpected bill by a significant margin. Now, let us confront the third misconception. Manifestation requires positive thinking and high vibrations. This notion, while popular, fundamentally misunderstands the mechanism of creation. Neville never spoke of raising your vibration or maintaining positive thoughts. Instead, he emphasized the law of assumption, the principle that your consciousness must assume the feeling of already being or having what you desire. This is not positive thinking. It is a radical shift in identity. It is not about thinking good thoughts about your future. It is about recognizing that there is only now, and what you are conscious of being now is what determines your experience. Consider Neville's powerful technique of revision, perhaps one of his most misunderstood teachings. Revision is not about denying negative events or forcing yourself to see the bright side. It is about recognizing your creative power to rewrite the script of your life by changing your memory of events. During my 7-day experiment, I put this principle to test when a planned meeting that was crucial to my professional goals was suddenly cancelled. Rather than accept this as an obstacle or even try to think positively about alternative outcomes, I simply revised the event in consciousness. That night, before sleep, I enacted what Neville called the drowsy state, that beautiful threshold between waking and sleeping where consciousness is most impressionable. In this state, I lived through the scene of receiving confirmation that the meeting was rescheduled for an even better time. I felt the natural satisfaction of this outcome, not as a future possibility, but as a present fact. The next morning, day 5 of my experiment, I received a message that the meeting was indeed rescheduled, not due to my request. I had made none, but because the other party felt strongly that we should connect sooner rather than later. What conventional manifestation teachings miss is that consciousness is the only reality. Your consciousness is not a tool to change reality. It is reality in its entirety. The world you experience is the world you have assumed into being. As Neville so eloquently stated, the world and all within it is man's conditioned consciousness objectified. Your job is not to change conditions through effort and technique. Your job is to change your concept of self, and the conditions will follow automatically. This understanding liberates you from the endless doing of manifestation practices and invites you into the being of your wish fulfilled. It transforms manifestation from work into grace, from struggle into acceptance. On day 6 of my experiment, I experienced perhaps the most profound evidence of this principle. A relationship that had been strained for years suddenly took on a new quality. Again, I had taken no external action to repair this relationship. I had simply lived in consciousness as though the relationship was already healed and harmonious. The outer world, that magnificent shadow of your consciousness, had no choice but to conform to my new assumption. This is the law that governs creation itself. It was never about attracting, convincing, or manipulating external forces. It was always about assuming the state that would naturally include your desire as already fulfilled. My beloved friends, we have journeyed together through the mists of misconception and emerged into the clear light of understanding. We have unveiled the 3 fundamental misunderstandings that have kept you from fully embracing the transformative power of Neville Goddard's teaching. Now, let us integrate these revelations into a practical approach that you can begin applying immediately in your own life. Let us first remember what we have discovered. The world is not separate from you, but is your consciousness made visible. Manifestation is not about repetitive techniques, but about the natural assumption of your wish fulfilled. And true creation happens not through positive thinking, but through a fundamental shift in your concept of self. On the 7th day of my experiment, I experienced what I can only describe as a complete transformation in my consciousness. It was as though a veil had been lifted, revealing that everything I had been seeking had already been given. The outer circumstances of my life began rearranging themselves with an effortless grace that defied logical explanation. The meeting that had been rescheduled exceeded all expectations, opening doors that I had been struggling to access for months. The financial abundance I had been assuming manifested as not one but 3 unexpected opportunities. The relationship that had healed continued to deepen in ways I could never have engineered through external action. But the most profound change was not in these outer circumstances. It was in the complete dissolution of anxiety about the future. When you truly understand that all of creation is finished, that all possible states already exist in the infinite mind of God, which is your own wonderful human imagination, then striving gives way to selecting, worry gives way to choosing, effort gives way to awareness. As Neville taught, the secret of creation is found in the sentence, "And God said, let there be, and there was." The principle of creation is hidden in the name of the Creator. The Creator is God. God's real name is I Am. This divine name, I Am, is your true identity. It is the creative power through which all things are possible. Whatever you attach to this mighty I Am, you create. I am wealthy. I am loved. I am successful. I am in perfect health. These are not affirmations to be repeated. They are states to be occupied. Now, let me share with you the practical exercise that formed the core of my 7-day experiment, a simple but profound practice that you can begin implementing today. First, select a desire that feels significant but not impossible to your current concept of self. Remember that we are not trying to convince yourself of something that feels utterly foreign, but rather to gently shift your assumption to include your desire as natural. Second, ask yourself this crucial question. If this desire were already fulfilled, what would be the natural feeling that accompanies it? Not excitement or ecstasy, but the quiet certainty that comes with any established fact in your life. Third, create what Neville called a scene that implies fulfillment. This is a short, simple mental event that would naturally occur if your desire were already realized. For financial abundance, it might be seeing a specific balance in your bank account. For a loving relationship, it might be hearing a specific phrase from your beloved. For career success, it might be receiving congratulations from a colleague. The scene should be brief, no more than a few seconds when played in your mind. It should be representative of the state fulfilled, not the process of fulfillment. And most importantly, it should be constructed so that your own feelings and actions are predominant, not those of others. Now, here is the practice itself. Each night, as you lie in bed preparing for sleep, enter what Neville called the drowsy state, that beautiful threshold between waking and sleeping. In this receptive state, enact your scene as though it were happening now. See it, feel it, and most importantly, inhabit it as already completed. Do not visualize yourself attaining the desire. Visualize from the perspective of already having attained it. Feel the natural satisfaction, the quiet certainty that accompanies any accomplished fact. Then, allow yourself to drift into sleep carrying this feeling. As Neville wrote, sleep is the natural state of rest for the conscious mind, and it is in sleep that the subconscious mind obtains the opportunity to display its powers. When properly employed, sleep can be made to serve any purpose. During my experiment, I dedicated myself to this simple practice each night. I did not engage in any daytime techniques. I didn't repeat affirmations. I didn't create vision boards. I simply lived my days naturally from the assumption that my desires were already fulfilled, and I reinforced this assumption each night in the drowsy state before sleep. This simplicity is precisely what makes Neville's teaching so powerful. It requires no special tools, no prolonged practice sessions, no complicated rituals. It requires only your consciousness, which is God's gift to you, the creative power of the universe itself. Now, you may wonder, if it's this simple, Why isn't everyone experiencing their desires fulfilled? The answer lies in what Neville called the suspicious attitude of mind. Most people cannot accept that creation is already finished. They cannot surrender their belief in process, in time, in cause and effect. They continue to look for evidence in the external world before they will believe, not realizing that belief precedes evidence, never the other way around. As Jesus said, "Therefore I say unto you, what things soever you desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." This is not a promise for the future, but a statement of spiritual law. The belief must precede the manifestation. The assumption of the state fulfilled is the cause, the outer circumstances are the effect. During my experiment, I faced moments of doubt. Of course I did. I am human, as are you, but when these doubts arose, I did not fight them or try to force them away with positive thinking. Instead, I simply returned to the feeling of my wish fulfilled. I reminded myself that the outer world, including my own doubts, was simply the shadow of past assumptions, and that my new assumption would in divine timing replace the old. By the end of the 7 days, something remarkable had occurred. The practice itself had become unnecessary. I no longer needed to consciously enter the state of my wish fulfilled, because I was living there naturally. The assumption had, as Neville promised, hardened into fact, first in my consciousness, and then in my external reality. This is the invitation I extend to you now. For just 7 days, abandon all your manifestation techniques, all your striving and affirming and visualizing. Instead, simply assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Live from the end. Allow yourself to simply know that what you desire is already yours in consciousness, and therefore must materialize in your experience. Remember that consciousness is the only reality. What you are conscious of being, you manifest. It is not your thoughts or your words or your actions that create your reality. It is your state of consciousness, your concept of self. As we conclude this journey together, I want to address the most common questions I receive about living in the end. Many ask, what if I can't feel it real? What if my current circumstances are too contradictory to my desire? Neville's answer to this was simple. If you find yourself unable to feel naturally the state desired, return in memory to an actual moment in your past when you did feel what you now want to feel, and spiritualize that feeling by knowing it is God in you. Others ask, how long will it take for my assumption to manifest in reality? To this, Neville would respond that time is merely a concept in human consciousness. The manifestation occurs instantly in consciousness and then unfolds in the three-dimensional world according to what he called the bridge of incidents, the series of events that must occur to bring about the completed manifestation. And finally, many ask, can I really manifest anything? The answer lies in understanding that while all things are possible in consciousness, your manifestations will always conform to your deeper beliefs about yourself and the world. This is why the work of changing self-concept is so crucial. As your concept of self expands, so too do the possibilities you can naturally assume into being. My friends, you are standing at the threshold of a new understanding, one that can transform not just your circumstances but your entire experience of being alive. The choice before you is simple. Continue with the techniques and practices that have produced limited results, or embrace the profound simplicity of living from the end. Remember these words from Neville. You must make your future dream a present fact by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled. The feeling is the secret. The state is the solution. The assumption is the creation. And you, my dear friend, are the creator.